So many games have come out over the years that have had an impact on gamers, young and old, some of which we believe warranted a sequel, or, in the last decade, at least a remaster. I'm sure most of you sit up at night with a list of games thinking or wishing some team of devs would announce the return of an iconic story or your favorite character. No, Conquer, not you, buddy. Maybe one day Microsoft will release those shackles and let you out of video game jail, but not today. Today, we're not talking about you, my beloved squirrel, but this guy. And with Halloween being tomorrow, this is the 8-hour truth about Medieval.
Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-hour truth. Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-hour truth. Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-hour truth. Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-hour truth.
Medieval is a game series that debuted in 1998 with its first release on the PlayStation, followed by a sequel, Medieval 2, in the year 2000. But we're not looking at those games today. Well, we are looking at the first game, but just the remaster that came out in the year 2019. And we're going to see if it's worth the buy or if another team of devs wasted their time on a remake. Medieval's story takes place in a kingdom far, far away. That's the impression we get with the whole Star Wars text scroll at the beginning here. But for real, it takes place in a kingdom called Gallowmere that is being attacked by an evil sorcerer named Zorak. He's the big bad, and he's invading the kingdom with his demon army, while our hero Daniel Fortesque fights valiantly against the demon army. But he is fatally injured during the battle, leading to his death. Daniel is now a renowned hero of the war, and after 100 years of time passing, Zorak reappears and begins to reenact his plans. Starts by stealing the souls of the living and raising the undead, and seemingly unintentionally, that also included Daniel. He doesn't quite look the same, but something tells me he's still a hero at heart. I don't know, it seems like Daniel got taken out in not the most heroic way, and that's quickly confirmed. Daniel has earned his title as Hero of the First Charge, but this mysterious wall gargoyle lets us know that that title is meaningless, as we're no hero. So Daniel stands proud with a decree to prove himself, and our adventure begins. We start off in our classic tutorial phase, and right away I can say that this game looks great in comparison to the 1998 original. And of course, it is a remaster, but I'm pointing that out because of the massive improvement that was made, because it's not one of those remasters where the textures were slightly improved or has a faster enhanced FPS. This game was made from the ground up. As we explore Daniel's crypt, the first thing we are presented with are these tomes, and it's kind of this game's way of explaining things. It's essentially its tutorial, but we'll see them throughout the rest of the game. Quickly playing around with the buttons, I rip off my arm somehow, and I realize now I've got a weapon. I can swing it around and I can throw it, but it seems like more of a backup as we quickly obtain throwing knives as well as a sword and shield. To leave this tutorial crypt, we must collect a colored rune which matches a color-coordinated hand by the door. This was a very short and sweet way of getting used to the range weapons, the melee weapons, shielding, and explaining door unlocking objectives. I'm also sure this comes from the fact that back in the day, storage space was so limited on discs or cartridges that this was simple enough for tutorial as we could get, but still felt like the appropriate amount of information for the player. Leaving the crypt, we're faced with a level select screen, which, once again, for older games, that was kind of the go-to when you couldn't have a world that was joined together through live loading zones. This might seem underwhelming by today's standards from what's possible, but sometimes level-based maps can be very convenient, especially when you're backtracking for that 100% status. After playing these levels, I just want to state that they aren't super long, so I want to cover the basics of what to expect, because I'll be skipping a lot because honestly, we would just be doing a full playthrough at that point. The camera works just fine. I've heard the original had some janky camera movement, but a lot of older games did, so I guess they fixed it. The range weapons are a bit difficult to use unless I'm just not grasping a lock-on system they have, or it just wasn't described very well. I just know, essentially, I have Navi from Legend of Zelda following me without all the constant nagging.
Hey, listen!
You will be picking up tons of money all around randomly. Enemies are pretty simple enough to fight, but they can hit you just as easily. And if you're as old as I am, you should know that these old school games can be ruthless when it comes to health or dying. I mean, when you die, you go back to the beginning of the level. No checkpoints. I mean, there are some spots around the level that heal you just by standing in it, and you can have these little life potions that give you full health upon taking a fatal blow, but that's it. Old school games can be tough, but they do build skill. One of the game's collectibles that we'll be seeing are chalices. These are collected by defeating a certain amount of enemies that have a soul in them. If you've played any Call of Duty Zombies and have done any Easter egg, think of this more like a soul box that needs filling up. Once filled, you are able to collect it, but be aware that these chalices may not always be very accessible, either hiding behind a wall that needs to be destroyed or on a separate path that's away from your quest. These chalices allow you to get upgrades or tools from the Hall of Heroes, which comes to the last thing to expect from this game. A slew of silly voice acting, which gives this game some personality.
After you were slain, I shot Zarek's champion, Lord Kardok. A clean kill through the eye at some 1,000 yards. Not that there's anything clever about shooting someone in the eye, sir. Oh, goodbye, sir.
So we talked about the story and what to expect, so let's talk about the enemies. The game has a nice variety of enemies for you to encounter from level to level. You're gonna see zombies most of the time, but there will be some enemies that will make you want to pull your hair out. If Daniel had any. From regular zombies to linebackers who charge at you, acid-spitting frogs, and killer scarecrows. The game does a good job of changing up how you will approach these fights. Remember before how I said these old school games can be brutal? Well, at one point, the game tells me I essentially have branching paths on what level I could choose next. But both of them were handing out free L's more than Oprah could. The acid frogs were snipers, and the scarecrows were unkillable, plus the fact I had to start each level with the health that I came in with, even after I died. So here's where the game really wants you to start using what you've been given. For the acid frogs and the killer plant life in the one level, you're better off with the range attacks. The scarecrows use a shield bash to run straight through them, which I'll bring up later. We'll circle back of how I got that ability. And use a club to beat the crap out of the pumpkin patch horrors. No, honestly, I got this hammer from the Hall of Heroes and I realized doing a charge attack while running around like a maniac was the play. And after each level killed me like 5 times, I figured, hey, I might as well give it a shot. Now I want to touch on bosses. By about 3 hours in, I had fought about 3 bosses, and I was really enjoying the creativity, even though the bosses were not very hard. They have that learn what you need to do kind of cliche, and it becomes a cakewalk deal going on. The first was this demon made from stained glass, and I loved the design for the boss. It was super appropriate for the level setting, and even with its basic attacks, it felt like a good first boss. The second boss we encountered was, once again, I'll reference COD Zombies, but some hellhounds. This fight had us ensnared between 2 of them, while they charged at you, leaving them vulnerable after every charge. And after this fight, we gained our shield charge ability. I told you I'd circle back on how we obtained the ability. I just wanted to add that we may gain more abilities through this means of fighting an opponent or beating a challenge. And the third boss was the King of the Pumpkins, or as cliche as it gets, the Pumpkin King. But I guess I can't really call this cliche since this game is so old. The name was probably super cool back then, so it won't lose any points. This boss was super easy though, because I had gotten this sword from the Hall of Heroes, which melted his health bar. Like I said before, you really need to utilize what you've been given. It did have this really cool 2-phase health bar where you need to smash these plant pods that healed him, but what was really amazing and awesome was how decaying and decrepit he became as we beat him. After beating the boss, we talked to this witch, and apparently there's a couple of them in the game that we need to talk to get specific tasks, like beating the Pumpkin King, and the reward we got was this dragon gem, and I'll get back to you when I learn what they're for because the game doesn't outright tell you. Every witch has a different task to do, like I just mentioned, and the next witch we encountered gave us a task that is so crazy. Retrieve some amber. No, for real, it is crazy, because she shrunk us down to the size of an ant to infiltrate an ant colony to get the amber from there. This leads us to talk about our next 2 bosses in the game, because while spelunking in this ant colony, we eventually run into a ant queen. Now, I'm pretty sure this was an optional boss. It wasn't a part of the witch's request to get the amber and get out. But it was a fairly simple boss. You do some dodges, you wait for her to spawn some enemies, which you kill, and then you attack her and repeat. This gave us an additional chalice, and since we did the witch's request after fetching the amber, she gave us a new item. A chicken leg. Yeah, definitely hits the top tier list of most weird weapons in a game, because it's actually a ranged weapon you throw at enemies, it turns them into chickens, and then you can consume them for health. The other boss we're going to talk about, well, first we have to talk about the one level that I was putting off, because there were so many ranged enemies. I skipped it earlier, it was annoying, but after I got better weapons, the level was a cakewalk. That is, until you released the Shadow Demon Hell upon yourself, and you watch your health bar disappear like it was never there. Honestly, these enemies were just the worst thing I've ever encountered in my life. It just seemed like a huge difficulty spike that did not need to be there. Once I made it through on my next attempt with 1 HP and no extra life potions, I slapped this ancient evil artifact into a pillar and was met with my demise as I was going into another boss fight, and spoiler alert, I died. You're pinned against these two flying demons, and I would say this fight was cool, but it was probably the first moment in the game I thought, well, this is stupid. The level was tough enough fighting these shadow goons, but this fight has you so worried you will have to do it again, you're in panic mode. Not only are these two demons flying around you, but the platform starts tilting, which causes you to fall to your insta-death. Strategy for this fight is spray and pray. Thankfully, ranged weapons are auto-locked, because I spammed this firebow I got like a mad person, until I had to switch to another weapon with more ammo, and I still almost lost because they had falling meteor attacks, which tripped me up, and I had no idea if it's even avoidable. Needless to say, I got through it, but it wasn't enjoyable like the other boss fights in the game. We had been playing for about 6 or 7 hours at this point, making sure to 100% each level so that we can get as many upgrades from the Hall of Heroes. We had upgraded bows with fire or magic, an upgraded shield, a powerful hammer, a throwing spear, a battle axe, and even a few different swords. Remember that sword that slayed the Pumpkin King? Well, that was only the first version, which ran on magic, and could run out very easily. I eventually got this cool, blue-looking version, which never ran out of its strength. I would say I made some great progress in the game at this point, and I got to see a nice variety of levels, which I really enjoyed. The church with the organ player, a garden maze with a door, which gives serious Fable 1 demon door vibes. The murderous pumpkin patch, a level where it felt like I was surrounded by the river Styx from the underworld. Honestly, I was just waiting for Hades to show up. Even a level where it was just a gauntlet of enemies we had to fight while we progressed room by room through the onslaught. And there is so much more that I couldn't showcase because it would be way too much to fit in this video. But there was this one level where these guys showed up.
Let's tear this place apart. If we don't find the shadow artifact, Lord Zarek will have us mocking out the demons for the next millennium.
Yeah, undead mechanical Russians was definitely not on my medieval bingo card, but I'm so here for it. This all led me to the last hour of gameplay where I ended up on a level that finally answered a serious question from earlier. While traversing this crystal cavern, just off the main path, we find this hole in the wall, which leads to a room with a dragon head statue. And yes, it's finally time to use the dragon gems that we acquired from before. A dragon sticks his head through one of the holes in the wall, and it appears we woke him up from a sleep, and he's not too happy about it. It also appears he's not too observant, as he makes a few threats that doesn't really affect Daniel.
Prepare yourself, little man. I shall roast the flesh from your bones. Oh, I see. Well, in that case, I will pluck out both your eyes. Oh, no. Great. I'm just gonna give you a good...
So as you can probably guess, it is another boss fight. The dragon moves throughout the room, going from hole to hole, and we have to quickly smash corresponding platforms with the hammer. This makes gemstones fall on his head. Doing so causes damage to his health bar, and it does seem like it stuns him for a little bit, but the time is so short, it's not even worth trying to attack, as we did try before, and it did major damage to us. After what felt like a dragon's lifespan of fighting, we finally take him down. We didn't slay him, but we just kind of made him sad, and now I kind of feel bad for him. And after all of it, he says, fine, here, take this dragon potion, which is not really a potion, it's more so just a mask. This item allows us to be impervious to fire, as well as breathe fire. I found the fire breathing not super practical, but it was really cool. After finishing up with the level, we had just gone over our 8-hour timer by a few minutes, so I knew I had to call it there. So it's time again for those 3 important questions that we need to ask ourselves after 8 hours of gameplay. Was the story good? Yeah, I mean, it's basic storytelling that sets up a protagonist and an antagonist. There's a problem that needs to be solved, and the colorful visuals from the cutscenes, I believe, draw you in. The game has that spooky Halloween theme with the undead, not to mention you are a literal skeleton. And it doesn't feel like kiddish, and the formula of the level-to-level progression feels right for that kind of quest. Push all of that fundamentals aside, and there's still that aspect that Daniel has unfinished business, and he wants to earn that hero title he was given. Did the game play well? Was there good mechanics? Very easy yes. As we mentioned before, it's a remake. They had a chance to fix any underlying issues that were there from the past, like clunky camera movement. I did have beef with the range targeting with some moments, but it wasn't even that big of a deal, especially when you had so many ranged weapons that you could spam and not feel like you wasted that much ammo. I didn't really touch on this at all, but there is a shop system where you can buy ammo as well. It was so minuscule to me not to mention because I barely used it, as I was able to replenish a lot without it, but it is nice just to have there. Every level you complete and acquire the chalice, the game automatically brings you to the Hall of Heroes, so you don't have to do all that backtracking on the map screen, and that was a quality of life piece that was icing on the cake. The game could be hard at times, but it felt fair, like in the terms that a lot of older games you needed to learn the level or the enemies. A lot of games these days, we're just used to blazing through a story with no issues because of the easy difficulty or the hand-holding from the devs, which honestly, once in a while is appreciated, but in this case, it was just nice to have the struggle and prove to myself I can beat it. Gotta induce the dopamine sometimes, right? And lastly, was the game fun? Yes, the levels are not super long, and it never felt stagnant or dragging. There were puzzles to figure out in certain levels, and like I said before, I thought the voice acting was funny. I generally miss voice acting in video games. Every single statue in the Hall of Heroes had something to say about Daniel, rather it be positive or negative.
Fortesque, you jawless arrow magnet.
The enemies were constantly changing, so it wasn't boring level to level, except the shadow demons. Remove that from my experience, and I would have slept better at night. The variety of weapons also made the game very enjoyable. The reward system for defeating enemies and obtaining chalices definitely gives you a sense of accomplishment. When you return to the Hall of Heroes and you get to earn a new piece of equipment for your adventure, it's like opening a mystery box. The Gen Z kids love that stuff, right? Get a chalice, open a Labubu or something. Except my Labubu is an ass-kicking sword that slays the undead. We've gone on a real roller coaster of an adventure here. We've acquired some spicy gear, met quite the cast of colorful characters, and fought lots of battles. So, is the remake of Medieval worth playing? 100% yes. This game will provide some challenge, give you a laugh, and do one of two things. Bring you back some childhood memories for some of us older gamers, and let some of the younger crowd experience what gaming was like before emotes and skins took over the video game market. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this take on a classic game and have formed some sort of opinion for yourself. But with that said, this has been Nuke Gaming with another episode of the 8-Hour Truth, and we will see you in the next one.
Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-Hour Truth. Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-Hour Truth. Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-Hour Truth. Welcome to, you have been welcome to the 8-Hour Truth.